I see so much brokenness. And a lot of times men don't like to ask for help. And a lot of times we don't know where to go for help. And so I'm trying to really reach those guys and just help them learn what it looks like to thrive in all of life.
You hear all the time, like, niche down, right? So like, why don't just niche down on, the spiritual side of things, or the science, right? The body.
Life is not niche down. Life is not in individual pillars. Life happens all together.
If you are committing to creating or content, that becomes also part of your identity, and it has to be built in.
People don't realize how much we're supposed to have fun in life. We need people to bring comedic relief in.
Let's go.
Yeah. And one thing I want to tell people is that, let that discontent lead you towards seeking fulfillment. Don't just accept your lot in life. You can be better. You can be the person you were created to be.
Yeah, baby, let's go. Guys, welcome back to Content is Profit. We're back in the studio. Fonzie, welcome back from...
Appreciate it.
Yes, don't go away ever again. We missed you. I missed you.
I like going to the other side of Florida. I'm not going to lie. I love the family. I love hanging out. But it's also very nice to just go me and my wife and, to a little apartment over there and just relax for a week.
You guys could also just get an apartment here in town. Just saying. But anyways, guys, welcome back. We have a special guest. This person we've chased. And because of Fonzie, we've had to reschedule him like 5 times, and I cannot wait to dive deep into this conversation. So Fonzie, tell us a little bit of who we have today.
I mean, I've met today's guest. Actually, I'm just going to say the name. I met Chad. Yes. Chad, welcome to the show, my friend. But I met you at a mastermind from, one of our clients, and you were working with him. We're recording the event, and you were working with him kind of like, I feel like, to nail down your message and part of your coaching program and all that stuff, right? And in the couple months that follow, we actually had some calls all together in that group, talking about content, about your podcast and what you guys were doing, to promote your podcast, direct attention and traffic towards your offers. And one of the things that surprised me the most is that you were the one that did everything, right? So, I would love to dive deep into your background and all that stuff, right? But for the sake of Content is Profit, we're going to keep the conversation in terms of, content and how you're driving profit into your company. But a quick background about yourself, right? You're a pharmacist, you're a pastor, what else? Give me the elevator pitch introduction.
Yeah, I'm a husband and a father first.
Yes.
I like to say that because that's my world. I am a pastor, I am a pharmacist. I love this great world we live in. There's so many opportunities. We talked about homesteading a little bit. I like to call myself a beginner homesteader. I've got chickens, I've got eggs, I've got a garden, I hunt on my property, I harvest venison. And so, I just love making a difference in men's lives. With the men that I come in contact with both of my positions as pastor and pharmacist, I see so much brokenness. And a lot of times men don't like to ask for help. And a lot of times we don't know where to go for help. And so I'm trying to really reach those guys and just help them learn what it looks like to thrive in all of life. So that's my 30 seconds of who I am.
Well, let me tell you, I love it. It's amazing. You got it nailed down. A lot of times when you ask that question to people, you can tell they're kind of like still working through it to see where their message lies.
Sure.
And you have the other side of the spectrum, which is like they memorize it in a way that doesn't really feel quite authentic. I'll say yours is like perfect, because right now I'm like, I know who Chad is. I know what Chad stands for, and I know who he is helping and how he's helping them. Awesome. And it was absolutely authentic and I absolutely love it. So thank you, Chad, for that.
Yeah.
First thing that I want to discuss real quick about content, and I feel like you might have a question here.
Well, I was just going to make a comment, right? One of the bio here that you says is from your site, right? Believe me, I know I lived this reality most of my adult life. I found myself living the American dream, yet surprisingly empty inside. And I guess I have a little bit of a follow-up question because as entrepreneurs, right, I think a lot of the people that we brought to the show, or even ourselves, right, we might be aiming for a certain reality or a certain objective of a profession or something. And then we're like, man, like this is really not what I really want to do, or I'm not really creating the impact or helping people, like I really wanted to. And then this whole process of shifting a lot of core beliefs, honestly, and personal growth and then this journey starts. a lot of also content creators go through something like this when they start publishing, right? Maybe like a smaller, not so quite like as an entrepreneur, but a little bit smaller process. I would like for you to share a little bit of that moment for you, was like when you open your eyes and be like, man, like, because you're a pharmacist. My wife is a pharmacist, right? She's perfectly happy with that. She's like, I don't want to, do anything entrepreneurship. This is great. You do your thing. But I would love for you to kind of paint the picture of like, what was that moment, and like what are the steps that you took to start taking action on that, right? You also do a lot of other stuff, and I'm sure like your life has been like shifting and being molded to the new you, I guess.
Sure. Yeah. Shifting is a good word. I've learned to appreciate the pivot, if that makes sense, because my life has been full of a lot of pivots since that point. And so, I guess you anticipate life being more of just a straightforward trajectory. I'm going to go through school. I'm going to graduate college. I'm going to get my degree. I'm going to get a job, get the dream job, get the house, the car, the white picket fence, the 2.5 kids, all that stuff. And, you think, all right, and then I'm going to live happily ever after.
Yeah.
But what about that moment where you have all those things, but you're like, I'm not happy inside, and that's not a complaint against any of those things, but it's just realizing that, I feel like each of us have a mission. Each of us have a purpose. And that wasn't my purpose. That single aspect of my life, graduating from pharmacy school, getting the job, chasing after all the things that we feel like that we're told to chase after, that'll bring us happiness, that'll bring us joy and satisfaction. I realized that's not giving me this. And so, at that point I had two options. I could have just stayed in the moment and said, all right, well, that's just life. And I probably would have ended up, a grumpy old man, some jaded old man. But I realized, okay, well, I need to seek that fulfillment. The fact that I do not have that satisfaction and fulfillment tells me that there's something missing. And so I began a journey that took me about 15 years, to be honest with you, to really discover, what does it look like to thrive? What does it look like to really have that fulfillment, that satisfaction, to where I'm leaning into my purpose? And one thing I didn't want to tell people is that, let that discontent lead you towards seeking fulfillment. Don't just accept your lot in life. You can be better. You can be the person you were created to be.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes a long time. Sometimes it takes 15 years, like it did me. Long story short, through that process, I began to look for more avenues in order to fulfill my purpose. One of those avenues happened to be faith. I felt a call into ministry after I graduated pharmacy school. And I'm thinking, well, God, this would have been great like 6 years ago, 8 years ago. But now what am I going to do? I'm a pharmacist. I'm not a pastor. And through the years, he's blessed that endeavor, and I was able to get ordained. I'm serving as a young adult pastor currently, and I'm still a pharmacist. I'm both of those things. And then I began to wonder, all right, well, it's probably not an accident that I had this call to ministry after pharmacy school, because a lot of people take that straightforward trajectory.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to be a pharmacist, and I'm going to be happy as a pharmacist. I'm going to be a pastor. I'm going to be happy as a pastor. And here I am. I felt my purpose was to have both of those things. And I'm like, well, how is this going to work? Like, what is this going to be? What's this going to look like long term?
Yeah.
And what it's looked like is exactly what I'm doing now. These two extensive trainings that I've gone through in my life, the training to become a pastor, the training to become a pharmacist, allow me to see life from a couple of different unique viewpoints. I'm able to see the human body and the physical perspective of life from my training as a pharmacist. And I'm able to see the spirituality, the mindset perspectives from my training as a pastor. And really what that helps me to do is to create a holistic vision for what it looks like to thrive, body, mind, and soul. And it took me, like I said, it took me about 15 years after I began that pivot to say, all right, I think I finally figured it out. But now what I'm trying to do is help shorten people's curve. Like it doesn't need to take you 15 years to figure out what it took me 15 years to learn. I'm shortening that curve. I'm coming alongside guys and I'm helping them figure this out in months and not years. And so, it's just learning to appreciate the pivots in life, because life is rarely just a straightforward trajectory. You do this, you do this, you do this, you live happily ever after. Life throws you curveballs constantly. I'm sure you guys have figured that out. And you live in sunny Florida, which is also peak of hurricane season. And so you have to learn to shift. You have to learn to take what life gives you and go with it, and not see things as failure. Because, when I had that moment where I'm like, I'm not happy, I'm not fulfilled, I'm not satisfied. I mean, am I happy in my marriage? Sure. Am I happy in my job? Maybe, but I'm just not fulfilled completely. I feel like there's more to life. And when I realized that, it took me saying, all right, well, I'm going to have to shift. I'm going to have to do something different in order to reach that. And so, just realizing that, when things don't seem to work out, it's not failure.
Yeah.
It's just leading you towards something else that will bring you that lasting fulfillment.
Yeah, absolutely. The image that comes to mind is that graph. I don't remember exactly from where I saw it, but it's kind of like that 1% improvement, that over time, like on the short term, you see it and it's like so minimal that it doesn't seem like anything. Yep. But then over time, that 1% every single time accumulates, right? And it's such a big change. And that graph is the first thing that comes to mind in sense of like it seems like it reflects your growth, that change that you did, right? And obviously now you're trying to help people not to do it at 1%, but maybe, can you do it at a 20% rate, like a little bit faster, right? And help people that way. The thing that causes me a lot of curiosity, right? When we talk about content, one of the main things that we always talk about is messaging, right? And I feel like there's a dichotomy of sense in your message between, science and religion, right? And I'm curious, right? How do you nail down your message, right? You hear all the time, niche down, and you have 7 pillars in your framework, right? Like faith, fitness. I don't know all the F's. You can share them, but at the same time, like I listen to you and it makes sense, right? Because I have problems that, sadly, and maybe, I need to reflect on this, but maybe I haven't shared, and talked about with other people to, help me be better.
Sure.
But yeah, I'm curious, right? Because like you hear all the time, like niche down, right? So like, why don't just niche down on, the spiritual side of things, or the science, right? The body, right? Just the finances, but why the holistic approach? And do you find that challenge communicating that to your audience in sense of, maybe people hear it and they're like, oh, like religion, and they're like immediately throwing it away, or like science, like how do you manage that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And the way I would answer that question would be this: life is not niche down. Life is not in individual pillars. Life happens all together, right? And so my faith influences how I interact with my family. My faith influences how I interact with my finances. My family affects how I treat my fitness and my food. Those are some of my pillars. Yeah. All of those things affect each other. And because life isn't just one thing at a time, life happens all together at one time. I feel like that, there's people out there who are spiritual coaches. There's people out there who are health coaches. There's people out there who are finance coaches, right? So, I've often wondered, hey, maybe I should just go down one of these places and stick with that. But I keep coming back to this thought process of that's not how life works. And that's not how my life has worked. More importantly, my experience is that everything is interrelated. And it's almost like a game of whack-a-mole. Have you ever played that before?
No. Is that the one that you're like, they pop up?
So the little mole pops up and you whack it in the head, and then another one pops up. And that's kind of what my life was like. So I would absolutely be nailing the career, the finance part of life, right? But my family life was suffering. And so then I would focus on family. And I would try to be the best husband, try to be the best father I could be. But then I'm not giving my faith enough attention, and my soul is starving. You see how that can work. And what I found is that if you really just dig deep down into one of those things individually, then something else is just going to come up.
Yeah.
It takes being holistic. Because life is holistic. There aren't, as much as we like to make it, there aren't silos to life. And I'll use a faith illustration for that. A lot of times people, they try to separate their lives into the secular and the sacred. And so, they go to church on Sundays or whatever the case may be, and that's their sacred time. And then the rest of my time, I'm going to live the way that I want to. But what we see is that that's not really an authentic relationship with our Creator. Siloing that to one day a week. Really, where breakthrough comes is when all of these things come together in all of our everyday life.
Yeah.
And so, to answer your question, I don't double down on any of those one things, because my experience is that by doing that, you're sacrificing something else. Yeah. And so unless you have that holistic perspective, which is kind of, when I teach my 7 pillars, but I don't teach them individually without first giving the vision of, okay, all of these things go together.
Yeah. Makes sense.
And so that's really how I go about the thought process, the mindset of that.
I love it.
Can I add something real quick? Just a quick question.
No, no, because your question is going to take over 10 more minutes. If it's not a question,
it's beneficial for the audience when, they're thinking holistically about their product, right? How to portray this. Because I'm very curious though. Have you noticed?
No, hold on.
A very specific. One second. Have you noticed one very specific side of your message resonates most with your audience? And helps them bring them through the door rather than, other side of the message?
Sure. You want me to answer this one first?
Well, my comment was going to be between what you said and that question, because now we're changing a little bit.
Now it sounds smart.
Which is fine. But no, my comment is I like the holistic approach, because just yesterday I had 2 very specific conversations, and it got me really thinking about that entrepreneur and almost like compartmentalizing different things, entrepreneur versus creator. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people that come here into the studio, I think that's the point of view. And I think this is going to help everybody listening too, when they're starting to create content where it's like, I'm just going to create content from 1 to 2 p.m. And then I'm going back to being, the CEO or the president or like the employee or whatever. Right. And I think we're at a stage in the new media world that if you are committing to creating or content, that becomes also part of your identity, and it has to be built in the whole thing. And the person I had the call with yesterday, this person has been trying to publish for quite some time, and they've tried podcasting, they've tried individual clips, they've tried, highly edited YouTube videos, all these formats. Right. And I think the epiphany for that person was he finally found a way to be consistent. And it was when he integrated the creation process to his life, to where like, I'm comfortable in this format, but then my entire day, I'm going to go about it. But maybe at 2 p.m. I happen to create something because it was an idea and then it happened. So it's almost like extracting yourself from the process of like from 1 to 2, I'm a creator, to where like now my identity is also a creator. Like you say, you're a father, you're a pastor, you're a pharmacist, you're, all these things together to where like, okay, now I have space in my day to where it's not confined to that. And I can move forward and create consistently and then receive feedback, and it becomes part of you. So that's just my comment. And then based on, what Fonzie asked, I'm also interested in that part of the message, because now, okay, we're diving a little bit deeper into, okay, now we accepted this identity as a creator. Now let's dive individually into that topic.
Yeah. So Fonzie, a lot of people, one of the things I think resonates most with people is family. Because let's face it, if mama ain't happy, nobody's happy. Right. and it becomes this process of, that's usually what drives people to seek help, is when they feel like they're about to lose their family, whether it be that the wife's halfway out the door, whether it be that there's some sort of crisis happening within the family. That's usually what it takes for men to reach out and get help. I can help people through those crises. But here's the thing: what they'll find is that they may have come to me for family, they may have come to me for this reason, but they're learning so much more about how to become a better human. Mm-hmm. And that's really what it's about. How do you become the best man you can be? Okay, well, you can't be the best man you could be in only one area, because there's a lot of different areas of what it looks like to be a man. And so they may come to me for one item, but then they realize that maybe their deepest need is something else. Yeah. Maybe it's manifesting itself in the family situation, but maybe there's a deeper need and that's what I love to do. I love to go to root cause. I'm a pharmacist, understand diseases and all of that. And so, you can treat symptoms. If I've got a terrible headache, and it happens every single day and it's debilitating. Well, I can take medicines and treat my headache. But if I've got something serious going on, I'm going to need a little more help in that. Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I can treat the symptoms. We can address the issues that brought you to me, but we're going to do a deep dive, a root cause analysis, so to speak, of exactly what's causing these issues in your family, in your life, wherever that may be. So yeah, it's usually one of those areas, either family or finances. It seems to be. A lot of times you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't realize how impactful faith is to all of their life. A lot of people don't realize how important one of my F's is fun. And people don't realize how much, we're supposed to have fun in life.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to be this straightforward, serious, just walk through life and never have fun. We need people to bring comedic relief in.
Let's go.
But a large part of that fun is like hobbies and self-care.
Yeah.
I didn't understand self-care. I thought self-care was women going out getting manicures and spa treatments. I didn't realize that I needed stress management in my life and I had nowhere to go to handle that until I didn't have anywhere to go to handle that. And so a lot of, and then that comes up because you blow up in your family. You blow up on your wife, you blow up with your kids. And you really, what it boils down to is you don't have proper stress management techniques in place. So you came to me for family, but what you really need was that fun. What you really needed was self-care. Yeah. And so, it's all interrelated.
I love it. That's amazing. I'll tell you, my way of having fun is beating my brother in every single video game out there, and go-karts too. I beat him every single time.
Both. I mean, true that he enjoys, lie that he actually does it. But so I see a lot of synergy also. And remember, like when we were talking about, okay, we're a production company mainly, right, on our side with the studio and the clips, right, and people we're the main, I guess, symptom will be they need production, but then they come to us and then we started to uncover like 6 other different things, the messaging, the creation process, monetizing, like all these things. So I loved it. That is like, we have like one way that people can find us in a way, but then as a business, what comes under is really the work that needs to be done. It reminds me, I forget her name now, but the marketing director that came in, she had about 52 weeks worth of episodes ready to rock and roll. And the second we turned the camera on, completely froze. And this is a person that had, spoken in public, directed a big marketing schools, run campaigns for clients and all these things. And the second the camera turned on, something happened in her head where she got in her head and that's it. That was the end of it. So there was Fonzie closed the door and had like a 2-hour coaching session to go to record. But like the underlying issue there was something different, right? And that makes also part of the business. So everybody creating, we might be creating with this specific message up front, but like you said, we need to keep our eyes open. And for a long time, I didn't keep the eyes open to the other things. We're like, we're a production company. This is the only thing that we do. This is the one problem that we solve, right?
Yeah.
And then opening the eyes to that, open the conversation to the total 6 levers that we talk about today in our content or like with the people that come to the studio. So I love that you have that reflection too I love the pharmacist analogy and obviously how you see it. And I completely agree. So I encourage every single person, revise your message. Like what are the things that you're saying? What are the pain points, right? But then the conversation that happens after with that customer or with like that discovery call, what are the true problems that they're going through that is not allowing or is blocking that solution that you provide?
And I'll also add to the importance of having someone else to be able to help you see your blind spots. That's where you guys come in when it comes to content. You do a fantastic job of helping people realize maybe their deficiencies. And a lot of times we don't like to ask for help, whether it be for pride, whether it be, we're not sure. In our world today, especially, men, we're treated like that's weakness. If we ask for help, that means I'm weak or that means I give up. No, I mean, you're going to be your best self. You're going to be your best content producing self. You're going to be your best business owner. When you work with other coaches that are trained to help you specifically in identifying those blind spots. A lot of times we get tunnel vision And we think, all right, this is exactly what I have to do. This is all I'm doing. And yeah, you're right. People like you come alongside us and we're like, no, hey, try it this way or work on this. And then the light bulb comes on. So,
yeah. So we talked about the message. I'm curious now about the medium, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because when I met you, right, you came out and you shared this with everybody, right? That you're an introvert, right?
Yeah.
But you started a podcast, right? And a podcast,
right.
not just talking, not just yourself, but actually doing interviews and talking to people.
Yep.
And I'm sure you've tried other mediums, right? And other types of content as well.
Sure.
But, most of the conversation that we had around your content was with podcasting.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm pretty curious, right? Like, what made you choose that medium specifically? How has it worked for you as well? And what method of promoting your episodes, your podcast, right, is working best for you? Because one of the conversations that we had, like I mentioned earlier, was one going through pretty much every single way there is to promote your podcast.
We did that.
And like 2 weeks later, you come back. I'm like, I've tried everything, I have and even though obviously 2 weeks is a small time frame, to
right.
have some results that can, speak loudly, you pretty much knew exactly, okay, I think I'm going to lean more towards this solution than the other one, right? Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. The reason I started my podcast is because I believe, number one, I like podcasts. I'm a podcast enthusiast, man. I love just putting on my headphones and, whether I'm running or working in the yard or whatever it may be, just listening, because there's so much valuable content out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I really believed, and this is maybe a different conversation for a different day, but I had to work through some limiting beliefs that my voice is not important or that people do not want to hear what I have to say. Those are some things that kept me stuck. Those are some things that kept me, kind of from using my voice in order to help other people.
Yeah.
Once I worked through those things and I realized, I've got important things to say, I feel equipped to be able to come alongside people and provide them valuable content. Let's start a podcast. And it was intimidating.
Yeah.
There was such a learning curve, from everything to studio setup to how to find guests to, finding your flow, finding your conversation, what that needs to look like, what that needs to feel like. But I love podcast in that it's free media that provides great value to people exactly where they are.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be one of those voices.
So cool.
And I say that. I didn't want to be because I'm an introvert and it scared me to death. But I really felt like that was the next step for me.
Yeah.
You can post on social media all day and that's fine and that's good. And that's part of my strategy.
Yeah.
But to me, when people really get to know you through a podcast,
absolutely,
they get to know your voice. They get to know your tone. They get to know what you stand for. They get to know what you believe in. They get to know what's important to you. And like there's times I'll be interviewing someone and I'll say, well, we're going to talk about this because it's my podcast. You can take that a lot of different ways, but I feel like that's a very valuable way to communicate your message.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so then whenever I started, the hardest thing for, I think, someone like me, just a guy in an office, starting a podcast, is helping people find your podcast. You can search, but unless you have one of those buzzwords in your show, people aren't going to find you. Nobody's going to be Googling RevRx unless they mean to, or unless they're misspelling something. So I'm like, how do I find people? And that was where Fonzius, where we had a conversation. How can people find me? Mm-hmm. I feel like my content's valuable and I feel like the feedback has been outstanding, but how do I help people find me? And we walked through some of those avenues. I tried some of the, paid ads. I tried some of the paid promotion, but I'll be honest with you. My greatest asset towards finding really the path for podcast promotion has been organic growth. Mm-hmm. there's just something that, especially because what I said about podcasting, people learn about you.
Yeah.
And so some random person that may be, paid to pull up my episode and listen to it, that's not going to me, that's not going to make a lasting impact. What's going to make a lasting impact is people hearing my voice on social media, promoting it by clips that I make, showing the conversation, the type of conversations I'm having, showing the value that my guests bring onto my show, showing the things that I love and care about. Yeah. And through promoting it that way organically, to me, that there's nothing better than, just organic growth. And I've received a lot of that. Podcasting is a long game, as you guys know, and you're not going to double in followers every week. But, I find a lot of value in that. People following me, people following my show because I'm in line with what they believe in and they think I can help them.
Yeah. So, I think also people finding you organically, right? Whether that is, through your guests, talking to other people, or you, writing down some sort of piece and publishing it and people coming through that. I think it create more of a faithful listener, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody that really wants to be there rather than, the coming through an advertisement. And we actually have seen that in our data, right? There was a time where the network gave us a big budget to spend on ads. Mm-hmm. And it was very interesting, right? Like, sure, like you get a lot of clicks and coming to your podcast, but the intention, I guess, of the listenership, right, is the resonance is not as strong as the people that are coming to you organically.
Yeah, the way I picture it is, you have these groups of people that have certain interests, right? And then you're here in the middle with like your own mix of topics, interests, voice, tone, because there might be some people out there that might not like our accent, right? And they might not listen, even if the content is amazing, they might not listen to it because they don't like the way that we talk. And that's okay, right? Like it could be something like that. But the way I picture is like, okay, we have this message, we're getting better. We're in this growth process as creators. Like we're getting better at our messaging and explaining and telling stories. And with this process of continuously doing every single week, like you said, it's a long-term process. Through that, like, where do I find these pools of people where I can show, my content, right? So that could be in the podcast specific realm, it could be a newsletter, it could be a network, it could be running the ads, it could be, and then there's the organic element that there's other people in this community searching for those topics or searching for you or like, and then they find you. And as you show your message repeatedly, physical events, you go to an event and you promote and you tell everybody, hey, I have a show. And then they go in and they tune in. That one new listener, right? If they stay 3, 4, 5 episodes, is going to continue to add up. And then the other caveat is like, how do I make these episodes the best I can so people share it with other people?
That's right.
People keep coming back. And with those two elements, if we do it repeatedly and podcast guesting, right? Like all these things.
Sure.
How do we do it repeatedly so they continue to come in and be reminded of something like this? I mean, just this morning, one of our personal friends sent a message in our group, and we haven't seen this guy in a long time. And he's a big fan of another podcast of the network, My First Meal. And he's like, guys, there's an ad of your podcast in My First Meal. And My First Meal is a show that it's one of our top shows. It's like that we love it. We consume it. We're like, this is insane. So that's a pool of people. So we'll see what happens with that ad.
Sure.
If they bring in, and perfect. If it's in alignment with the message, it's going to resonate. It's going to help. So I love that you're sharing your journey. But like I said, like that organic people is quality, and they resonate with you and they stay.
Yeah.
Well, and for me, one of the ways I look at it is there's a difference between growth and impact. Growth for growth's sake is not really what I'm after. Perhaps some shows that's the goal.
Yep.
But for me, really what I'm trying to do is impact people. And, is there a chance I could impact someone with a paid ad? Sure. Is there a better chance I could impact people through organic growth? Yes. And so that's really the way I see it.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
I really like that. Just know that since you said it on this podcast, we're just claiming it like ours. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. I think like one of the last questions that I really want to ask is like tactically, we have a lot of people, obviously we have a studio where people can come in and remove the friction from production. But obviously you mentioned earlier a learning curve. And I think a lot of people going into content creation, they want to do it themselves. They want to, get their hands dirty in a sense. if they don't have a big budget for something like that. So can you share with us, what was your first setup, whether that's a podcast or a social media setup? We're like, okay, this is, I'm good with this. I'm going to roll with it. Like, what was that look like? And then maybe your first recording session. How was that experience?
Yeah. So, it began with a beginner's mic. It began with it was a stand, kind of like what you guys have there. It started with the camera in my laptop.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, that's good enough. Right. And then you realize that, if I'm going to be the best I can be, I might need to put a little bit of an investment into this. And so I bought, nothing I have is top notch. You can spend as much as you want
it goes
on
insane.
any of this stuff.
Yes.
But I upgraded my microphone, updated my camera. I've learned, and we live in a world where you can learn how to do anything.
Yeah.
You can watch YouTube videos. You can, pay to watch this webinar or whatever it is. If you want to learn it, you can learn it.
Yeah.
And I invested in learning, most of it free.
Yeah.
How to edit software, how to use editing software, how to edit my videos, and how to add music, how to add background stuff. It's just a little bit at a time. And for me, it wasn't about, I had to get out of the mindset of everything has to be perfect before I start. Because there's a lot of value in just starting where you are.
Yes.
It doesn't mean you can't get better. It doesn't mean you're not going to change and pivot, kind of circling back around to the beginning, right? It doesn't mean you're not going to change and pivot as you go, but don't let that hold you back from getting started. That was my biggest hang up, was I'm a perfectionist at heart. And if I'm going to put myself out there, man, it's got to be perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I overcame that and really, how did I overcome that? I just did it.
Yeah.
When I started, I just started because I said, I'm going to start it.
So good.
Yeah.
And it wasn't perfect. And there were plenty of flaws, but you know what? I had a few faithful followers, and I got better and I got better and got better. And, we're continuing to get better every day.
Yeah.
Just that 1%, like you said.
That is so good.
Let's go.
Back again to that curve at the beginning. Good circle there.
Yep.
To close it up over here, because we are towards the end, right? We talked about message. We talked about medium, new framework here in common. Check this one out. We're going to talk about money, right?
Oh,
the
man.
3M, and I'm not talking about the tape company.
Just saying.
Message, medium, money.
Just saying, you're like renaming the 6 categories that we already have.
So, Chad, actually, you mentioned that you have a upcoming, I'm going to say offer, right? But it's a challenge that you're putting together to help people, right? To help men holistically, just like you mentioned, right? Throughout the show.
Sure.
And, just talk to me more about that, right? So people that might be interested, they can go and find you and they can join it and, hopefully be okay with opening up and be vulnerable and, sharing their challenges, because that's the way we're going to be improving as men.
Yeah. Let me add that one of the things that I have noticed in my coaching is that there's a lot of freedom that takes place in a group where someone says, I'm struggling with this. And you see eyes light up, and you see other men say, I thought I was the only one. Mm-hmm. And so, that's really, really powerful. And that's really what I'm offering to people, is that place. And there's going to be one-to-one coaching. There's going to be group coaching.
Yeah.
Depending on your budget. That's what's going to be coming out. But I just wanted to add that part real quick, is that, it's nothing painful. We think about, sharing our struggles as, oh man, I don't want to tell anybody about this, or that's less of being a man, but there's power in that. That's where breakthrough happens. But yeah, I put together, I love the 3 M's. Like any preacher, I love alliterations, and I've got my 7 F's with my pillars. So I can appreciate that. But what I've put together, towards the holidays every year for previous 39 years of my life, I have just coasted through the holidays. And, I do okay through the year, but through the holidays, man, the average person puts on like 10 pounds. Isn't that crazy? Yeah. We let ourselves go and we coast. And then come January 1st, we're like, oh, okay, I have all these crazy New Year's resolutions. But first we've got to get through that setback that the holidays have put us in.
Yeah.
So it kind of I created this with me in mind, out of my experience. And so I put together it's called the 40 Grit Challenge. Grit means the ability to persevere despite hardship. Men need grit. We need grit today in our world. We need to be able to push through when things get hard. And we have a comfort crisis, and that's a different conversation for a different day, but I'm all about it.
Yeah.
We need to have grit. And I've put together this challenge for 40 days. It's the final 40 days of the year. It starts November 22nd. And for 40 days, you're going to work through 3 different areas: body, mind, and soul. Everything I do is holistic, right? There's plenty of challenges if you just want to do a bunch of push-ups. There's plenty of challenges if you just want to read scripture.
Yeah.
What I've done is I put together body, mind, and soul. You're going to work out every day. You're going to complete a gratitude journal prompt. Gratitude journals are clinically proven. I'm all about the science. Clinically proven to decrease depression. The holidays are depressing for a lot of people.
Yeah.
A lot of times there's pressure, there's stress. All of these things really weigh heavy on us through the holidays. And the gratitude journal is going to offset that. There's gratitude journal prompts every day, and there's scripture with a devotion that I've written to take care of the soul aspect. So body, mind, and soul each and every day for 40 days. At the end of that 40 days, you're going to be physically stronger. You're going to be a lot clearer with your mindset, and you're going to be focused with your soul. And what I'm hoping to do is just let men finish the year strong. You don't have to just coast. You don't have to let yourself go. There's a better way.
Yeah.
And a lot of that comes through developing that grit that's necessary to allow us to, you know what, keep pushing. Life's hard. If it's not hard now, it's going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But keep pushing, and you can do hard things. So
I love it, man.
Thanks for sharing.
Yes, absolutely. And if you're listening, please go ahead. We're going to leave all the links right below. Connect with Chad. Go listen to his podcast.
Show us a little book. Show us a little book you got.
Oh yeah. Here we go. Spiral bound. It's
Look at that.
a little log.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's a log book for every day.
So cool. As a dad as well, they're about to turn, 5 and 2. And the 5-year-old started to watch a show that I grew up with as a kid. And, one of the things that made me so happy this week is like he came back and he has a couple of stories. He doesn't really tell me a lot of stories after school, but lately he's been sharing these stories. And in both situations, he's had a little setback in recess, either he falls or he does this. And he's like, Papa, but I don't give up. I didn't give up. I got up and kept running. And it's been so cool to see that. Because like you said, we are in this like comfort society thing. And it's like when, we have the other experience where like he maybe fell, and it's like, how do I, as a dad, right? Mm-hmm. You reflect a lot of, what's happening to you sometimes with your kids, or at least that has been my case. I'm like, man, I'm seeing myself in a mirror, so I got to get better to do that. And then he's showing me the path, which is crazy, and it's amazing to see that. Yeah. So I love that you're putting something together to, help other men out there and move the needle forward, man. And I think you're doing wonderful work, and I encourage you to keep publishing and finding your people. Super awesome.
Yeah. Thank you so much, guys. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Where do people connect with you? Where do they go to sign up for the challenge as well?
Yeah, my website is www.therevrx.com. And if you add a /40 grit, that'll get you the challenge. You can also navigate there from the website. I'm also on social media, Chad Potts or RevRx Wellness Consulting. You can find me any of those places, and I'll provide the links as well.
Awesome.
So cool.
Fonzie, Chad, that was
any
amazing.
last thoughts?
Well, I do have one actually. I see 2 guitars on the back. Do you play guitar? Do you have a little RevRx jingle you wanna play?
Man, I'm out of practice. I love guitars. I love music, always have. And since my 3 kids have come along, so I'm with you. Mine are 3, 5, and 7. It takes away a little bit of the time, but that's one of my self-care things. I use that therapeutically, but that's a good idea. I need to work on a RevRx jingle.
Yeah, right.
When I nail that down, I'll let you know. Maybe we can do a round 2.
I love it. Recently we had a guitar teacher here on the show, right? He's been very successful with his content, growing his business, and he's giving me classes of guitar. So I'm like 3 weeks in. I got my little calluses here on the tips of my finger, and I'm loving it. So whenever I'm ready, we're going to have to jam together.
we'll have a jam session, man. That'd be great.
Do it.
Sweet. Guys, with that said, thank you so much for tuning to the Contents Profit Podcast. Go ahead and follow the show in your favorite podcasting platform and on social media at BizResco.
That is right. If Chad here help you move one step closer towards your goal, please don't forget to share this episode. And of course, don't forget to leave a 5-star review. See ya.
Bye, guys.